Hello and welcome to O-Worm. Today we'll be looking at the anatomy of the perch. The perch is a type of bony fish. Not a very creative name, I know. It's a fish and it has bones. In its defense, there's a type of fish called cartilaginous fish that do not have bones. Bony fish are very proud of their bones. It's important to them. Just let them have it. Before you make fun of them though, you should know that bony fish are the largest class of vertebrates in existence today. They occur in all freshwater and ocean environments, including caves, deep-sea habitats, and thermal springs and vents. The variety of shapes and behavioral habits is remarkable, and hard to keep track of. Really, they should just pick a theme and stick with it. A perch is a pretty classic example of a bony fish. It's pretty generic. It doesn't have any of the exciting features that the lungfish has, but in fish terms, it's alright. It's a very good baseline to learn about many features of bony fish. So let's take a look at those features. Here is the jaw of the fish. The upper jaw is called the maxilla, and the lower jaw is called the mandible. It also has teeth running along it to catch and eat prey. One thing you'll notice later is that the mouth is very close to several vital organs, including the heart, which is right here. This means that trying to swallow anything with spines that are long and sharp enough to penetrate the mouth walls is quite likely to cause serious injury or even death. This is more of a bug than a feature, I'll admit. Well, you win some, you lose some. Up here are the eyes, which are well adapted to seeing underwater. They also apparently work really well as bait for other fish. Who knew? I didn't. Did you? If you did, I am impressed. Here are the nostrils, which the fish uses to smell. Each nostril in a bony fish actually consists of 2 openings. Here's another nostril with 2 openings on the other side. Here's the operculum, which is a bony flap covering the gills, providing protection. You can see the gills underneath right here. The operculum also serves a role in respiration. It opens and closes to pump water over the gills. This means that unlike most sharks, bony fish can breathe even when they're standing still. They do so by pumping the water over their gills. The mouth sucks in the water, and the operculum opens to let the water out over the gills. Now, one of the most exciting things about dissections is that I can actually explore how these structures connect. For example, if I put a probe into the fish's mouth straight in, it'll go through the esophagus and stomach. However, if I tilt it sideways, it comes out through the gills. Wait for it. See, like that. There we go. This is the pathway that the fish uses to draw water from the mouth over the gills. Now, you may be asking, am I a fish? How can I tell? You know what they say, give a man a fish, teach a man to fish, you are a fish, etc., etc. Just do a quick check by chewing on a banana. If you're still alive afterwards, then you are unfortunately not a fish. Bony fish would suffocate if they tried to chew their food. Chewing would interfere with the passage of water over the gills, which is necessary for obtaining oxygen. Now let's look at the fins. You may notice that some of these fins are paired, like this one, and these 2 at the bottom. Now this is because fins deserve to have friends too. And also it helps with maneuverability, but you know, fin pals have a nice ring to it. Here are the pair of pectoral fins right here, another one here. And down here are the pair of pelvic fins. Here's the anal fin. And at the tail is the caudal fin, which moves from side to side like this and does most of the heavy lifting in moving the fish around. Up top are the anterior dorsal fin, and here's the posterior dorsal fin right here. Some of these fins have spines, as you can see here, to protect the fish from predators, so be careful when handling them. Another thing you'll notice on this fish is this horizontal line here, which is called the lateral line. This is a really cool system of sense organs found in aquatic vertebrates that can detect movement, vibration, and pressure gradients in the surrounding water. Also take note of these scales covering the fish. They protect the skin from attacks by predators, parasites, and other injuries. You can also see that the scales sit atop the necks so that they can slide against each other. This results in armored protection that can still move freely with the fish. It works kind of like a coat of mail worn by medieval knights. Well, now it sounds a lot more impressive, doesn't it? Now down here are two openings. The one that is more anterior, meaning closer to the head, is the anus, which is the exit of the digestive tract, here. And the one that is more posterior, meaning closer to the tail, is the urogenital opening, which is the exit for both urine and gametes. Okay, now let's take a look at the internal anatomy. First, I'm going to make a cut from the anus to the operculum. Now do the same thing along the lateral line. Now cut from the bottom up to connect those cuts. Now I'll try to peel back the skin and muscle layer, being careful not to damage the structures underneath. This opens up a nice little rectangular window for us. The scales might come off, but that's okay. Okay, so the first thing you see here is the liver. Here it is. It's this structure right here. It has the usual jobs of detoxification, protein synthesis, and production of bile salts. I'm going to remove it now to see some of the other structures. So now you can see the structure here, and this is the swim bladder, and it helps keep the fish stay buoyant in water. To visualize how it works, imagine if you wanted to stay floating in water for a long period of time without having to waste energy by swimming the whole time. Naturally, you'd swallow and inflate a balloon. That's what the fish thought too. Fish can release gas through blood vessels to inflate or deflate the swim bladder, allowing them more control over how deep in the water they want to be floating. So if I poke the swim bladder, you can see that it's literally like a balloon. This structure here are the gonads. Males would have 2 testes, while females only have 1 ovary. So we can count 1, 2, 2 here, so this fish is a male. So now you can see the spleen, which is the gray structure down there. The spleen acts primarily as a blood filter and is technically considered a non-vital organ. Sorry, I don't make the rules. I'm just saying the spleen is basically a glorified lymph node. Now here's the intestine, which is considered a vital organ. It has the very important job of absorbing nutrients from food, so without it the fish would just starve to death. So now I'm going to move aside the swim bladder. So now you can see the dark line across the back, and this is actually the kidney. They're not the beans we know and love, but I think this type of kidney is pretty cool too. Now I want to get a better look at the gills, so I'm going to end the operculum's whole career and cut it off to expose the gills. So now you can see that there are several gill arches. There's one gill arch, there's a second one, and below that a third one. You can also see these tooth-like structures right here between each arch. These are called gill rakers, and they filter the water to prevent large particles of food from entering the gills and also separate the gill arches from each other. So now I'm going to cut the tissue between the gills and the window we made before. Now we can see the heart here, and fish have a two-chambered heart, meaning they have one atrium here, this one, and one ventricle here. So their circulatory system is in a single loop, which means that the blood from the body enters the atrium, then the ventricle pumps it to the gills, where it is oxygenated and goes straight to the body without passing the heart again. However, the disadvantage of this is that blood slows down when it enters the capillary beds of the gills. Because it doesn't get an additional boost from the heart, it moves slowly on its way to the tissues and even slower on its way back to the heart. Thus, the fish needs to use its skeletal muscles, meaning physical movement, to help move blood back to the heart. Fish can get away with this because they live in water, where the force exerted by gravity is less. However, if land-based mammals were to try this method to return blood to the heart, they would die from exhaustion. So instead, we humans have a four-chambered heart, which has two atria and two ventricles. The blood from the lungs returns to the heart and is given a boost when it's pumped to the rest of the body by the left ventricle. So now I'm going to move some structures aside so you can see the stomach better. This structure here is the stomach, and you can follow it up the digestive tract to the region here, which is the esophagus. Now you can see these finger-like projections along the intestine. These are the pyloric ceca, and they help digestion by increasing the amount of surface area available for absorption. Now I'm going to remove the digestive tract to give you a better look at the intestine. So snip the end of the esophagus and at the end of the intestine. There we go. You can see that the intestine folds back in on itself in a zigzag shape. This is a way to kind of scrunch in a long intestine into a smaller space. And that's the end of our perch dissection. Thanks for staying, folks. Here's a fun fact about bony fish to send you on your way. There's a species of fish called rabbitfish that have been documented to form friendships. They team up in pairs and take turns to forage for food while their partner remains out in the open to quite literally watch their back. Unfortunately, this behavior is so far unique among fish. If a fish wants to be your friend, check that they're a rabbitfish. If they're not, you may be being catfished. Oh, and if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more.